As always, it's me, AP, and today I have an important topic to talk about, which is what are micronations? I see we already have somebody there in the comments. Good to see you. Saw there from potentially Jamestown. Thank you guys for being here. And make sure to like if you can. It helps to spread the video to more people so we can get more people into the stream to talk to us. James Patrick Quinn says, hello from the Kingdom of Jamestown. Are you planning on coming to MicroCon 2025? Missed you this year. Hello, King Quinn. It is great to see you. I would say I'm not certain. I really enjoyed MicroCon when we went in 2022. It was nice. It was in Las Vegas, so it was a lot more expensive than we could afford. We actually had to have our supporters help us out with paying for that trip. That was an investment for our empire. And unfortunately, I felt conflicted because while I enjoyed it, while I got to meet so many amazing micronations, people that I had seen online and had looked up to, Malasia and all these different groups, West Arctica, who was hosting it that year, all of these different groups I felt like I kind of brushed shoulders with and we got to see and we got to talk to. But at the end of the day, we didn't get a lot out of it once leaving, and maybe that was our fault. So I do want to talk about microcons in general and discuss that. Maybe this would be a good time to do it because microcon just happened. But this year we just couldn't, even though it was a lot closer and it would be cheaper for us to go, we couldn't justify it. We couldn't justify the costs as opposed to developing our own projects and trying to build things on the ground here at Vitae and as well just in our local community in the United States. So I want to talk about all that. First off, we have 7 viewers right now. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to get into the main topic of this video, which is what are micronations? Because there are tons of different opinions on this all over the internet. I have my own definition of what a micronation is to the Empire of Aeternia, and I want to get your opinions because there are a ton of people who say if you don't ascribe to these specific sets of rules, or if you don't have these specific characteristics associated with your micronation, you're not a micronation. Or on the flip side, micronations are these specific things, and nations that are trying to develop into real legitimate nations should not call themselves micronations. So there's a lot of opinion on that, and I want to bring some of that up. But real quick, it's good to see you, James. Thank you for liking. Everybody else, thank you for liking. Imperial Federation of Petinka, I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Great to see you. Much love to you guys, and thank you for liking the video. Same things to the United Territories of New York. Thank you guys for liking and hanging out. Trains Gamer, good to see you. Aldonian Empire, Utrayan Empire. Everybody's here. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Again, this is a huge topic for me because as we move forward with talking to people, if you guys haven't seen some of our edited videos, recently we've been going out into Huntsville, Alabama to talk to residents and ask them the question, what the heck is a micronation, and to try and explain to them, if they have never heard of a micronation before, what it is to us and what we're trying to do and why we think it's so important that they join us in trying to develop Aeternia here to make a difference for people. So when we were doing that, most all people had no idea what micronations are. That's completely understandable because of how niche a community this is. But on top of that, the people who did had very different opinions of it. It was interesting. Really the only person that we got who had a concrete, solid understanding of what a micronation was referenced Chaz, which was the something autonomous zone, and it was basically during some of the Black Lives Matter protests a few years ago. There was an autonomous zone set up by protesters to effectively try and create their own cop-free, autonomous zone in that region. They started planning a community garden. They started trying to do all these things. It got shut down pretty quickly, unfortunately, but it was something that was interesting. It was a different type of micronationalism than I think I had ever seen before, and it was unique because somebody that we talked to recently used that as their reference point, as their understanding of what a micronation is. Even though I don't think many people, if any people in the micronational community, people who are running micronations, people who are a part of micronations, would have looked at that and said that is a micronation. But we covered it at the time and talked about it as potentially a micronation and how it could develop. But that was crazy. The reason that we get into that and the reason we say that's so important is because when we're trying to explain this to people, we're saying, hey, we're setting up these, this land for people to come out and live on. We're trying to build buildings. We're trying to create this garden so that we can provide food for ourselves. We're trying to create a sustainable environment that allows us to build residencies for people so people can move their families in and live and create, happy work-life environments for themselves and something that they can invest in for their future and their kids' future. But in that case, I don't think we're with a lot of other micronations necessarily. I think that, for example, Sealand, we've talked about this in the past, but places like Sealand say, well, micronations are a thing that happen very rarely, where you come across a circumstance where you can declare your own nation completely legally and it's immediately recognized. And Sealand feels like that is something that is only really applicable to them, that all of these other micronations that have been created aren't actually nations to any right and shouldn't get the same kind of recognition that they do. They feel that that is a unique, separate thing, and that Sealand has a special place in its recognition and its ability. I don't necessarily think that's the case, because some people do recognize Sealand, some people don't. It's certainly a very famous example and one that is very popular. But I think there's a lot that we can do, even not reaching that status, to still make ourselves known and to make ourselves more and more legitimized as we approach that status. So first off, I want to talk to everybody and greet everybody. I see Emperor Victor Von Doom from Draconia. It's wonderful to see our good friends here in the conversation. Hopefully you can help us out with talking about what a micronation is. As well, I just want to bring up as a quick little promo for us, we are closer than ever, not closer than ever, we are very close right now to reaching monetization on YouTube. Recently, YouTube changed their monetization guidelines. It used to be 4,000 watch time hours a year. Now, for some channels that post regularly like we do, it's gone down to 3,000. So we are at almost 1,600 watch time hours right now, like 1,570 something. We have a long way to go because we've done a lot fewer live streams. But if we could push really hard on these live streams, as well as continuing the beautiful edited stuff that we do, we could hopefully reach monetization and then kind of scale back and relax and do just more in-depth videos and more higher quality edited videos, because we know we're getting paid on the back end for that. So if you guys help us and watch these streams, it helps us to invest more and more in this channel and improve that content for you guys, as well as to explain to all these people what the heck we're doing. So that being the case, let's talk about micronations. What do you guys in the chat think micronations are? For your nation, how would you describe it to somebody if they said, hey, I'm willing to join, I'm interested, tell me what it is that you've got. What's your pitch? What's your main idea that defines not only your nation and what's so special about your people, but also micronationalism in general? Why should anybody do this? Why should anybody think that this should work for anybody? For ourselves, again, I described earlier, we are trying to do this for the development of a community. We are trying to do this to allow people to free themselves as much as possible from the burdens of normal everyday life in American society in particular, but that those same feelings are emulated in many places across the world. So for us, it is about finding that freedom through building resources and structure for ourselves. So this includes these communities. This includes, providing public works and trying to develop a sense of community that is outside of these large metropolitan communities that we live in. Like, we've been visiting in Huntsville, in Birmingham, and even down to the individual personal level. There are people who are living in these very, very complex societies who say, I have a hard time finding friends. I'm new to the area. I can't really, find people to connect with. It is wonderful as a person to be able to know that, for example, when we visited Stephen at MicroCon, one of our government officials, Stephen Vince, master of the House of Treasure, came over to MicroCon and was one of the delegates with us representing Aeternia last year. We could see it. It felt like something entirely different, that this person who is on the other side of the country from us, this person who's doing things in their own life completely separate from us, for most of the time, we get to congregate in this one place and all know that we are Aeternians and all feel that and represent that to the world. That's incredible. So micronationalism has extents not only in planning and development of communities, but also in the individual interest of the community members in that shared bond. So it is a mind-blowing thing to me that micronationalism on the small community level has not blown up more, and I think there are plenty of tactics to do that. We've also described on this channel how many problems there are and obstacles in our way from doing that, but we've been slowly making progress, especially recently with Vitae. So for us, that idea is around community. That idea is around growing and having the idea that we are aspiring to be recognized as a nation, the same as any other nation. Now, we already consider ourselves a nation like any other nation, but that's different from being recognized. So that's where the micro aspect comes in for me. Micro meaning we are small, we're tiny, and particularly we're unrecognized. Whereas a macronation is something that many people in this community use as a term for a nation that is recognized, that is large, that is easily seen and understood by the masses as a nation, so more particularly as a country, as a as a state. And so we want to become a state like those states. For others, though, online, I have seen there be a swath of different ideas. Some people saying that if you're trying to pursue statehood status, that you should not call yourself a micronation. In Draconia, for example, our good friends and allies, they consider themselves a seed nation. So they said, micronationalism. There's a lot of different opinion on that. There are a lot of different people pushing in a lot of different directions. So we want to specify our own thing. We call ourselves a seed nation. A nation, it feels in a similar extent trying to grow into a large recognized nation. Other people have said, Stemeria, for example, completely left micronationalism, wants nothing to do with it because they feel like it's not associated with what they're trying to do in developing into a real nation. There are plenty of people in micronationalism who have no interest in developing into a fully fledged recognized nation. There are plenty of people I see on the micronation subreddit, which is interesting, but to some degree breaks my heart because there seems to be a deep-seated pessimism. There are some people who get on there and say, I am just having fun and I'm excited to just have fun with people, which is wonderful. Also, I see 9 viewers, 7 likes. Thank you guys for liking the video. If you can like, it helps to spread the message. It means the world to me personally. But when we go online and I personally see all these people on the subreddit, some of them are just having fun, and that's awesome. Some of them are legitimately trying to build connections with other nations so that they can grow and develop. And then some of them are depressed, it seems, or at least very, very pessimistic in what it is as their outlook for micronationalism. Because sure, they will post things and have fun, but I think because of either criticism that they've gotten in the subreddit or from other aspects of the micronational community, or because of their own difficulty in seeing and projecting their ideas into the future, setting goals for themselves and figuring out practical limits, they say micronationalism isn't possible. So when you'll see some of these comments, they'll say things like, well, we all know that this is just a hobby and nobody could ever really get past this point. And it's very weird to me. It's very weird to invest so much time and money and effort into something that is a hobby and can be a hobby perfectly fine, but that you don't believe in yourself. Like, you realize that this is an aspect that people are chasing, but that you at the same time don't personally ascribe to, and in fact discourage others from ascribing to, which is hard. And I don't think we should necessarily take that attitude. In Aeternia, we don't take that attitude, and I would hope that others could learn ways around it, because a lot of the time what those responses are relating to are what are potentially fairly non-serious, or if they are serious, fairly short-sighted posts. So I will see things like, people posting about their militaries or about building great submarines and building, great technological advancements and things like that. They'll be like, hey, so I'm planning on building this huge platform out on the ocean and developing it for millions of people to come. And once we build it, all these millions will come and we'll have millions of dollars in investment or billions of dollars in investment, and we'll create these militaries, and we'll create these large technological hubs and hubs of commerce and trade, and have shipping lanes all over the world. How do I get this started? And people will respond to them and say, you shouldn't really do that. How are you going to do that? Which is perfectly reasonable to ask, hey, you have this huge goal and you're over here. How do you get from here to there? It's entirely different to say, which a lot of people do, well, micronationalism is a hobby, but it's nothing more than that. We really shouldn't be trying to aspire or encourage people to get to these larger areas, which I fundamentally disagree with. Um, and that's hard. That's a hard line to separate. And I think that kind of commentary turns people into that type of commenter. It sets this precedent to where, well, if my dreams can't be established, I can make sure to forewarn or discourage these other people from achieving theirs. And I don't think that's the way to do it. I think it's, again, fair to point out to somebody, hey, the expectations that you have for your goals right away are a little bit unrealistic. You can't go from zero to hero right away. How do you slowly build up and progress? Encouraging people to think about those ideas and to start small is important, and it's the quickest way to get them on track to developing. However, we shouldn't try and knock down their whole dream. So that being the case, what is a micronation within that? Within the realm of, there are going to be some people who are doing things purely for fantasy purposes. There are going to be some people who are trying to pursue this with all their might. By hook or by crook, they're going to do it. And then there are people in between who are developing this and who are trying to push for something, but who aren't sure exactly whether they are considering themselves in this fantasy category, whether they're considering themselves in a realist category, or if those are even applicable categories to apply. And for myself, I think that there is a wonderful host of creativity that comes with the fantasy side of things. I think people, purchasing this elaborate costuming, people, developing all of this wonderful art and these sketches and these diagrams and these plots and these long, lists of rules and laws and taxation. All of this comes into the lore and background, the history of a nation, and is wonderful for encouraging others to join and for showing what is possible with these ideas. However, that those things in and of themselves do not create a nation, in my belief. Those things are perfectly fine to establish a micronation. Those things are perfectly fine to express to others your ideas. Those things, when you are talking about realism, when you are talking about putting boots on the ground, building a society, those things, those flashy items, those shows of creativity are not necessarily what gets you to the stage of building. And so where do we find a compromise there? If you are somebody who's a realist who's trying to grow into that, do you immediately read these comments and feel discouraged? Do you start creating a whole bunch of stuff and then realize you spent a lot of time and money on the creative aspect without developing the building aspects? Or do you do the opposite? I have seen some micronations, this is very rare, but I've seen some micronations that have developments. They'll put out gardens, they will do all of these different things physically. They will be, building little forts and stuff like that, and they won't have. Excuse me, 1 second. I will be back. But yeah, so I think that's a very difficult thing to do, but it's something that is important to point out, that doesn't necessarily allow people to get to know you, and so there is a mix there. There is a lot that is to be decided on with that. But real quick, what I want to do, I've spilled my guts and kind of my feelings about this. I want to go ahead and read a few comments, and then I'm going to go. I've been called for dinner. But I appreciate everybody being here, and I want to continue to discuss this topic. If you guys have other topics that you want me to discuss, again, I want to start doing more live streams so we can hit that mark that we're trying to get to. Again, 3,000 watch time hours, not impossible at all, perfectly reasonable. And once we hit it, we've got it. So let me read a few comments and we'll get to it. Victor Von Doom, Emperor Von Doom said, greetings. Good to see you, Emperor Von Doom. Victorian said, why? Hello, good to see you, Victorian. Also, 13 likes, 8 viewers. You guys are killing it. Chad Cook says, hello. Good to see you, Chad. Tenia says, an independent nation that isn't recognized by larger, more known countries. I think that's a general rule of thumb for sure. Chad says self-recognized country who has not been approved by the UN. Ooh, see, that's another one that's very specific. People are like, the UN needs to. So like, even if other like if UN Security Council countries recognize you, but the UN didn't, then it wouldn't count. Like there, I feel like there's a gray area there. But that is a good defining point that a lot of micronations talk about. Empire of Kaltarsia, good to see you. I hadn't seen you guys in the comments yet, but thank you guys for being here, and it means a lot to see you. Said, oh, this is an interesting question. My friends in Hokoria actually held a poll to ask what they thought the answer was. That's wonderful. Let me know what the poll was. If you could share it with us on Discord, I would love to post that on our social media just to see what people think. Republic of Vita said, hello to all micros. By the way, there is a micronation community in Discord and WhatsApp. Very cool. We have a Discord as well if you haven't joined it. Victorian says, I'll start a civil war in Third Nation and create my micronation. Any suggestions? The suggestion is don't do that. I know you may be joking, you may be, lighthearted with that. That sounds serious. War is horrible. Chad Cook says Siberia. Sardom of Kaltarsia says, Civil War. I'm no stranger to those. Chad Cook says Alabama. We are in Alabama. Republic of Vita says, I was in wars, but no civil wars. Oh, goodness. Sardom of Kaltarsia says, I honestly think the primary purpose is just to have fun. And that's important, but is that the primary purpose? Like, because you can do anything and have fun, right? If the primary purpose is to have fun, then swinging on the swings is a micronation. Watching birds is a micro. That can't, having fun can be the purpose in the sense, it can be a consequence of it. But how is having fun the purpose? Like what is it? What defines a micronation? Because it can't just be having fun. Having fun is fun, and you should have fun with it. Otherwise, what's the point? But what is it? What defines a micronation? Republic of Vita says, what I think is that you gotta be a micronation. What makes a micronation is you gotta be serious. Again, some people definitely take that. That's why we kind of define the realist versus fantasy. If you haven't seen that video, you should check it out. Fake name says 2 in 1 week. Impressive. Thank you, Aeternia. I appreciate it. Glad to see you here, and thank you for the likes. I'm excited to get into more. Again, we're closing in on that monetization on YouTube, which will help us just a little bit every year. Sardom of Kaltarsia says, of course, I'll ask the leader of Hokoria for the link. Hey, thank you. Or just like an image of the poll. Fake name says, I see this conversation is good for incursion. Oh, goodness. Aeternia is trying to promote their whole, do a war thing, but it's a paintball war or an airsoft war. Not a bad idea, because you call it incursion and not a war. Better than war. I'm curious to see what people think. You have promoted it in the past, and people weren't saying no. Has anybody adopted incursion? You'd have to hit me up on that. But I am going to go for now, everybody. It was great to see you all. Again, I really want to start building this conversation in the community, so we may do a stream tomorrow. We may do one Thursday as well. I'm going to be trying to get out an edited video on some of our progress here and at Bate, but just keep me updated. Let me know in the Discord when it's best for streams for you guys, because I really want to try and build up so that we can hit those monetization goals right now. We have maybe an hour of watch time on this stream or so, but I would really, really love to get 20, 30 watch time hours a day. If we could start hitting those numbers, we would be zooming up to monetization really quick. So we're going to be pumping some stuff out and trying to see what we can do. Sardom of Kalsaria says, yes, sorry, wrong choice of words. I meant I should be the main aim for having a micronation. But I agree with what most people said already, not being recognized by recognized nations. Agreed. But you're right. The main aim for a micronation should be to enjoy yourself and to pursue your passions. Absolutely. Aeternia says, some micros have adopted incursion, but as far as I'm aware, none have occurred. Makes sense. It'd be cool for you to host one. I'd be curious to see what it's like. But until next time, see you guys, and Aeternia forever.